Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields, and I'm full of crap because I had a Coke. So there you have it. How are you doing, Rogan Smith?
Surviving.
That's good.
Yeah, I like the dead air.
Yeah.
It works for me.
We're doing it until the edict of the phone.
Well, first of all, you made that pledge, not me.
Well, no, the pledge I made was
So-
I wasn't going to say anything until the person isn't on the phone. That's also the
well,
pledge I
we
made.
could be sitting right
Okay.
here.
All
Okay,
right.
so let's go. Put on some music, Kendrick.
Kendrick, how you doing, man? Everything's good? Candy, how are you?
I'm good.
That's good.
How are you?
Good. And you had a pleasant weekend?
I did.
That's
I-
good.
yeah,
That's good.
I
That's
did.
good. What did you
Little
do on the weekend?
A little bit of work, a little bit of relaxation.
A little bit of work, a little bit. What you call work and
Nice
play?
Work and play.
There you
There was
go.
a nice little balance there.
Good. So there were some things that transpired over the weekend. Well, when did it happen?
Which?
Your boy, what is his name? The Trumpster.
The
Did either of you? Oh boy, did either of you watch the inauguration, Miss
No.
Smith, Miss?
I didn't watch
Miss,
it in its entirety. But
You know,
yeah.
the only clip that I saw was when I was in the bank.
What
And
we say? What we now call Rogan Robbie. She gets it.
No, I don't.
Okay. Remember when you was on that show? Okay, we'll do it in the break. I'll remind you in the break.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I'll remind you in the break. So,
Mouth
anyways,
it.
huh?
Mouth it.
No, hold on. Go off. Go. Hang on. You got it? When you were on the show.
Hey.
He just when you're on the show with. It's still on.
You see?
Okay.
You see?
So, anyway, we'll come back to that. So anyway, so what did you do? What you were saying? You
Oh
saying?
yeah, no, I just caught a snippet of him actually reciting, saying the oath.
Oh.
And I just got really sick to my stomach.
Well, I was at work, so I didn't have time to really to watch it. Let's see, that would have gone on what time?
Like 12 o'clock it started.
Right.
So a little
I
before
saw it
noon.
about between
Yeah, people
Like
are
11:57,
12,
something
people
like
people
that.
people awake, man. Kendrick, you watch the thing? People awake, man. They ain't got time for that.
yeah, but
You can watch
Was it a
online.
holiday in the States?
No.
no,
Okay.
no.
Online, yeah. So the big controversy, because I did see someone send me a WhatsApp. WhatsApp. He sent me a WhatsApp comparing the crowds. So when I saw that, I thought, this is foolishness. So I said to the person, because you don't know what people do, I said, "Is this before the event started?" And they said, "No. This is this was at the same time for both the Obama crowd and the thing." It's just so difficult, talking to a forehead.
Put up for me.
So, yeah.
Are you still talking to Candy?
No, I'm talking to everyone.
Oh.
I'm gonna make a plea on public radio. Can we? We're in the studio and we're talking to each other. Can we not be talking?
But
looking
I
at
was
the phone?
talking to you while I was doing that.
Yeah,
you know,
but it's the person on that other end is more important. That's the rudeness thing.
Why-
What do you call it?
why
What you call it?
can't you-
Flubbing?
Why can't if I'm having a conversation with you, I can't continue doing that?
Because it's rude. That's why.
Don't look at it as rude.
I'm looking at it as rude because it is rude.
Anyway,
It's not a matter of how I'm looking at it. It's just rude.
What's your question? Anyway, what's
So
your
but
question?
that's the plea. Can we have that? Can I have that plea?
I can't always promise.
I will have to
but
promise.
I will try.
Yeah, well,
I will
okay.
try.
Ladies
Yeah.
and gentlemen, please forward in and tell me if you think it's rude. Okay? For someone who is engaged in a conversation not to be paying attention to you but paying attention to a phone thing
no.
instead. No, it's my question. I get to do the question.
But it's
It-
not an accurate question, Trump.
This is the question I'm asking. This is generalized. Forget about Rogan Smith for a second. Is
it's
it
directed to me.
rude that when you're talking to someone that they are also looking down at a phone while you're engaged in a conversation? That's just the question.
And the person is talking to you.
No, I don't care if they're talking
But
to you.
I could see if you were talking to me and I wasn't answering.
Yeah, but I just find it's rude. So there you go. Now, by the way, there's a term for that. We talked, it's called fubbing. Remember, there's an actual term.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
No, I only watched little pieces of the inauguration. I mean, because obviously you had to work, but I watched some snippets later on, and then they went to the balls and all that stuff. Just seemed a little weird.
4 years ago, I went to the
His
inauguration.
dance.
So what was weird about his dance? He did a slow dance.
Well, he did. Well, what I loved is that he did this song. He and Melania Trump, his wife, danced to "My Way," Frank Sinatra. I thought that was most appropriate.
Yes, of course.
And I loved it. That's one of
Yeah.
my favorite songs.
I think Adolf danced to that song as well.
That's fine. That song didn't even exist when Adolf was around.
It was called My Way.
No, but it was just an awkward dance with him and his wife. She just looked like she was being held hostage.
You know, the kind of weird scenario, too, is that for the first time, I don't know, I could be wrong on this, for the first time in at least our history, the president, not that he doesn't have a right to do this, I'm not condemning him, is essentially a betrayal of the typical, rich old guy with a young woman. It's kind of bizarre. It's a bizarre thing. It's not the normal scenario. You don't see that normally.
To see him?
Yeah, no, I'm saying when you see, like, we work in a hotel, right? We often see the rich guy with the yacht and the young girl, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, now we're seeing that as a president. He's the president doing that, It's kind of usually it's the same age group,
I don't know.
And then of course she's from Hungary or something like that. So I don't know what she's saying. But anyway, listen, it's all fun. It's all I'm one of those people. I've yielded a long time ago. Give him a chance. Let him do what he wants to. And not only that, it's not a matter of giving a chance. I can't do anything about what he does.
Yeah, no, you could get upset and uptight like everybody else who making noise about it. I don't know what they think is gonna come of that.
No, I'm not upset. I'm not upset or tight at all. What I am is bemuddled. Befuddled. How your boy could just make stuff up. It's almost humor. He could just. In fact, it's almost even like during the campaign, like he has a kind of an illness. Like, no, I don't know Putin. Who's Putin? Okay, but the week before he was like, oh, well, Putin is a good friend of mine.
Right.
It's just he's just a strange cat. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's going to be, and I made a couple of bets.
I think he just forgets that people are recording. I think
then he's an idiot.
He exists in a time where they don't have those types of
except that
recording
he's on
devices.
TV, But I've made two bets. I've made a bet with some people. And one guy was slicker than me, but he won me over. I'm making a bet that before the year is out, like 12 months, he will be impeached. Because I think the Republicans, they ain't really into him that much. They into your boy Pence. Mm-hmm. So they got their backup plan. Mm-hmm. And they will actually look good, right? If he does something wrong, they can go, well, we're for law and order and transparency. Let's impeach him. Because they know they got their man. Their man who is like, he's into like homosexual conversion. You know that? Like he believes that can be therapied out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. In fact, he went through it, apparently.
Pence?
My man Pence.
He personally went through it?
That's what I can't
You
verify
said
that. No, I've seen it on various sources, but I can't, and I've seen it on the Googles, but it seems it could be iffy. The other thing I've bet on is that he just is going to say something where like the whole world at the same exact time
I think that
is going to get to say, I told you so.
I think that moment's already happened.
No, because not the whole world at the same time. There are different people, different pockets.
I think it's happened at the same time.
Yeah, it's just going to be a big... when it's going to be the big moment? When someone like a Paul Ryan, that's his name is Paul Ryan, or some hardcore Republican is just going to go, you know what? We just can't take it anymore, okay? We give up. Because he's just, he's a loose cannon. Well, or is it a possibility that he'll grow into it?
Maybe he'll grow into it, and that's why I say give him a chance. I mean, Trump has been an epic mess up or screw up from his campaign days, probably possibly even before. But
like when he was born, maybe like that.
No, I wouldn't go back that far. But I mean, at the end of the day, what are you going to do? I see people wishing for his failure, and I'm always disgusted by that.
Like how they did for Barack Obama.
Well, yeah. Well, anybody. There are people who wish if like for example, the PLP's in power, people wishing for their failure. If the FNM is in power, they're wishing for their failure. Their failure is your failure. Don't be stupid.
No,
and so I don't support people who do that sort of stuff.
I like I say, I'm getting to this place in my life now where
I would never want my government to fail.
It's just not worth the aggravation. That there's so many things. I'm trying to focus. Someone said to me, "What's happening?" I was at a function. I was at a dinner somewhere, and they said, "What's going on?" I go, "Right now, this dessert menu." I try to figure out if I want the creme brulee or the caramel cake. Because that's all you could deal with right now. You can't. The past is irrelevant. I mean, you can learn from the past, but you can't undo it, right?
Yeah.
And you can't really predict the future or
No.
live in the future.
He may turn out to
You
be.
can only live in the now.
He may turn out to be one of the greatest presidents ever. Who knows what the future holds?
That's true, and I may turn out to be
Here comes your sarcasm.
a child.
The fact that, maybe.
So
maybe you got
know,
the Benjamin Button syndrome.
There you
thing
go,
going
yeah,
on. The fact of the
exactly.
matter is, we don't know what the future holds.
We don't know anything.
And so we can criticize him from day in and day out, but the fact of the matter is, we don't know.
Well,
So all
he's
you can do
already
is hope
pulled
for the
back
best.
on. He's already pulled back on some things that, is not like the housing thing. They had this federal housing program which gave low interest rates to, people who couldn't afford housing, etc. He cut that out. That finished. So that's only going to hurt.
He signed the order for the Trans-Pacific Partnership. There's a lot of things he's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, he said what he wants to get done this first 100 days, and he seems to be on a roll.
But I'm still waiting for Vernell. That's all right. I'm waiting for Vernell to come down and say, listen, Donald, I don't know if you know this, but you signed that thing there that daddy can't get no liver transplant. So we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back. We're going to straighten that up. Okay, Donald? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our guest this afternoon is Sir Franklin Wilson.
My boss.
He is going
You
to
wanna
be
talk
here.
about that?
I'm sure that there'll be some tough questions coming down the pipeline. And we'll also talk with Candy later on this afternoon. What else went down this week? Anything locally went down? Nothing really, eh? I can tell you one thing. Your boy Concolay, he's sending me 10 emails a day. Or 10 videos a day. Yes.
But I had so much great feedback about that show with him on there. I mean, that was fantastic. He definitely has to come back.
Yeah, there's just too much
definitely
garbage.
has
It's
to come
crazy. This is the guy Candy who he's I'm saying it too, because it becomes an obsession. It's just like how people who have a cause like animals or the environment or children's being abused, etc. It is an obsession because that's the only way that you can commit to things to that length, and hopefully that because you can be obsessed with a lot of things, but hopefully this is what I would call a positive obsession. But I can tell you, man, I don't know where else to go with this. People just seem to don't care. I don't know how they live next to it.
Yeah.
I don't know how you live in a house. I don't care how dirt poor you are.
Oops.
I don't care how dirt poor you are.
I gotta say
okay?
that.
And at the bottom of the, right next to your yard is just a pile of bottles and debris, So,
They say garbage.
well, it's garbage. And I don't know how you do that. I just don't know how you do it. But anyway, people do it, and that's the way it is, as they say. So who we have with us now is...
It's like candy. I can feel it when you walk.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
No, it's not good morning. I'm thinking of something else. Good afternoon, Candy. How are you doing?
You trying to put us back in the morning?
Putting
I
back
don't
in
like
the morning.
that.
Yeah, go back in time. I was saying to someone, you see that? I was saying to someone about if I could go back and know exactly what I know now. Because the problem of going back is that in all the movies where you go back, you don't
Know what you know now.
now.
Yes.
So you start over with the same foolishness.
Right.
If I could go back
Like Groundhog Day.
and know what I know now, hey. But then I decided that's not good. I don't want to go back because then you got to go through this whole crap again, right? I need
But
to
you would
fast
go
forward.
through it differently.
No, I need to fast forward.
You need to fast forward.
I need to fast forward to
but-
about 64,
But if you
65.
had a different awareness and you go back, you would do things differently, and wouldn't it would be a whole different experience.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But right now I'm looking at fast forward. I'd have to
You
go
fast
back too
forward
far.
what, to the grave?
I'd have to go back too far, as opposed to going forward maybe about 3 or 4 years. I don't think you should be allowed to use the fast forward button till you get to like 58, 59.
Why would you want to choose the fast forward button?
Because when you get to 59, let me just say this to you, Candy.
I don't
Because you're
like
not
this
this. How old are
idea.
you? You're 40 something, right? 50, 40 something.
You can just like, I ain't
see
50.
the he don't want to tell us his
Don't
age.
get me there.
The fast forward button is not employable when you're in the 40s and early 50s. Because you
that
still got
says so.
you got some action. Yeah, because I'm making this up. You get some action going on, right? When you're 58, you're in a little limbo. because you're 7 years away, 8 years away, roughly
From retirement.
From retirement. Okay.
You only a year 2 from senior citizen.
Yeah, but that gets you nothing. No,
already
that
senior
and the
citizen?
senior.
No,
I don't even
not
think
yet.
60s even get you no discount. I think you get me 65.
Yes.
Yeah, you get discount.
You
You get a discount. Well, okay.
yes.
Well, that's why I want
That's
fast
something
forward.
to look forward to.
So I think if I could fast forward to like 63, 64, 62, 63, 63, 64, I can coast to 65. Right now, this is a tough next 4 years, man.
Assuming,
This is assuming you don't get like the gout. This okay. This is if I can just
Oh,
skip
so-
forward, and then I'll be, hey, how you doing? I'm going to be retiring in a year.
right.
Now, and when I retire, I don't mean like not do anything.
No, but just from your, daily grind,
From
the day-to-day.
people who
You would be
need
doing something that
people.
you want to do
Yeah.
as opposed to, in your own time.
Yeah, and it's unique to me, so don't worry about it. How you doing?
Oh, I thought you had already gotten into
No,
No,
he's
we
talking
give it a
about
fast
his
forward.
fast forward button and rewind
Yeah.
and stuff like
What's
that.
going down?
Well, I wanted to talk about this past weekend
Mm-hmm.
that after the inauguration, they had the women's march.
They pink it out?
There was some pink.
Okay.
Yeah, man. There was some pink, some red, and it wasn't only just women out there. There were men supporting the movement. There were young boys out there as well, young girls supporting the movement. But, of course, when you take to social media, you see all kinds of different comments
Like what?
about what
Like
you
what I
said.
said?
Right.
I said
Like
it-
a lot of people didn't see, both men and women actually, more men, didn't see the point
Yeah,
of the
I didn't.
march.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why don't you see the point of the...
I mean, what do they hope to do? It was the outcome. Okay, so you make a bunch of noise, rah, rah, rah. Okay, yeah, you get some airplay, you get some airtime. Yeah, now what?
Well,
Now what? These people
no-
go back to their regular existence. Do they do anything?
Well, now let me also say this too, right? I saw some comments and
Marched out.
well, they were saying, well, where were these people before the election? Like,
Some
why
of them
didn't you
didn't even vote.
agitate like this before the election? Now, I think that comment is assuming that these people didn't do that.
Every
or
single
didn't
person
vote.
voted.
Right? Maybe,
And
everybody.
maybe a lot of them didn't.
But the point is, that's
to me, that's the biggest way
I think that's I'm only stating my opinion. It's moot because
But
just
the-
so you could assume no one voted, you could assume everyone voted. So it's a wash.
But the thing is, I do remember a lot of campaigns happening, especially geared towards women. I mean, with of course, with Hillary running and there was movement, there was some sort of momentum, and that's why I thought, I think people thought a different outcome would have happened.
I didn't see the same level of action prior to the election, and to me, I think these marches would have been more appropriate prior
This
to
is
the
a protest
election.
of Trump. That's why it
Right?
didn't happen
it
before.
is. It's
They could
actually-
have
protest-
protested before because
It was
he
a
No,
was
they're
protest against
protesting
Trump.
against him
Trump.
being
They're-
president.
Yes.
Okay, but my point
That's
is,
what-
Just like
they
the
didn't
Tea
have to
Party,
wait-
the Tea
they didn't
Party
have-
marched against Obama.
They didn't have to get to this point where he was even president. Is my point. They
Well,
could have
maybe
stepped
if you
up their
assume-
protest if that was
If you
that was
assume
the
that
case.
every
Right.
single one of them voted,
Voted.
it wouldn't have mattered whether they protested or not, because 53% of women voted against him. For him, I should say, of white women voted for him. So it's just numbers. But this is what I think about a march. We have to stop decrying people's
right.
right to want to march. If one person wants to get up with a placard, that's their democratic right to
right.
do so. They don't have to explain it to anyone. And yes, the only person who have to explain it to them is themselves.
And they don't have
if
to
you
get
don't want
permission
to
from
march,
anybody.
if you don't like and by the way, you have exactly the same right to criticize them marching.
Yeah.
I was
So
about to say,
so yeah.
So they
it's-
have a right to
yeah,
march.
yeah.
I'm not. She asked me what was my opinion about the march,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
said I did not see the point of it, and I thought that they should have done it prior to him being elected.
Right.
If that were the case, that's my opinion.
Right. The only thing
Okay.
is this.
That don't stop people from going out there with their placards.
The only thing is this. Everyone who comments on someone's right to march, almost everyone, at some point will find themselves marching for something. And
that's sort of
someone
how
will
it always
question
is.
and someone will question what are they marching for?
And some people who criticize choose not to march, and they choose to make an impact in
Right.
other ways.
Right.
Right.
It could
And-
be donating their money or their time, other
Exactly.
things.
So, for those who, didn't quite understand, there is a website that you could go to find out what the mission and vision of the march was about. And I'll just, say it right now. It says we stand together in solidarity with our partners and children for the protection of our rights, our safety, our health, and our families, recognizing that our vibrant and diverse communities are the strength of our country.
It's
It was
all
a
symbolic,
direct.
right?
Sorry.
It's all very symbolic, correct?
Yes, and it was a yes. It was a anti-Trump because I mean, what Trump has done and said towards women is just incredibly, and what he plans to do, and women, what do you want them to do?
Look, after
Gosh, in
Obama
other
won
ways,
the
I just
election,
say-
And how are they supposed to take action?
after Obama won the election, repeatedly, if I recall correctly, the Tea Party, which became formed after he essentially became president, had marches all the time about against Obamacare, against this. Obamacare still passed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people voice their opinion. I mean, it's better than picking up arms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because that's what they do, right? They're saying we're against it.
Yes.
And maybe people will listen, maybe people won't listen.
It just
Who
seems
knows?
like y'all
I
are very,
mean-
not to cut you off, Candy, but it just seems like you're very selective in when people should speak or when they should voice their opinion. So if they're in favor of...
You're saying I'm being selective and you
Yeah, I
mean
mean, just
generically?
based on-
No,
just
they
to-
can do it anytime.
No.
No. What I'm saying is this. It's okay for people to voice their opinions that they should march and they should protest against Trump. But if somebody says, what are you marching for? What are you protesting for? It's silly. They should, like, those people are ostracized. Those people
sir.
should
No,
No,
sir.
I don't.
No.
I don't know.
Not
I don't
me. Not me.
ostracize. No, I don't
Not me.
ostracize.
Not me.
Is a
Well, you
general
said you,
feeling.
so I'm
yeah,
taking
it was
me.
initially, but I said there's a general feeling
Yeah.
like if you're saying this is silly,
Everyone's
going
gonna
to
say it's silly.
But you know-
Everybody thinks you should do this.
But you know what? For me, Rogan, it is if you don't equip yourself as to why these people are out there, and you just, in your opinion, you don't research and you don't find out exactly what it is that their cause is about, and you just
'Cause
off
it's
the
easy to
cuff
just
say
say it,
it's
yeah,
silly,
yeah.
it's dumb, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Find out what it's about first before
Okay,
you say that
so-
it's
so
silly.
what is this
Equip
about?
yourself before you say
But
something.
I keep asking the question: what is the intended outcome?
It's almost like it's
So
you know.
what is the outcome?
Well, what do you mean?
I
What is
mean,
the outcome?
what was the intention? Just to bring
What is the
awareness to
intention of the
fact-
Martin Luther King March
What
on
is the
Selma?
intention of Reynard and those protesting? What are the intentions of any
What
of
is
these
the intention of the
protests and
PLP
marches?
marching on Majority Day? What is the
What is
intention
the
of
intention?
The intention was to commemorate what happened in
no, what do you call
50
it? Burma? Yeah, the Burma Road, marches. People try to bring awareness to say, look, to the House of Assembly or the representative bodies. Listen, it's like writing letters. You know, I used to work in a government office, and all they did was answer letters. And I imagine there are people saying, what's the sense of writing letters because no one's going to answer? But they wrote a letter in the hope that someone would answer. So you just do what is available to you.
Right.
That's the only thing you can do. In a democracy, all you can do, and then you can say, you know what? As a result of this, like the Tea Party actually did, they actually ended up doing some action. They get financial support so they can have lobbying groups, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes these marches are to really highlight that there are organizations you can contribute to who can carry on the cause of fighting the fight. So there's a whole range of reasons why people march.
And this march in particular galvanized a group of different groups came together. I mean, you had
And they talked about the divisions in those groupings that came together. I don't know if you saw the report where they were blaming black and brown women for creating divisions while out there. They're supposed to be under one umbrella, but the black and brown women allegedly were saying, well, the reason why Trump is here is because of white women voting him in. So that created some animosity out there as well.
You can't
So-
help. When you get a million
Well,
people,
yes,
listen,
you're gonna
Rogan,
have-
listen,
you're
Rogan.
gonna- I'm saying,
Let
yes,
it-
you're going
let-
to have...
Now, and you, by the way, you did that just now, so I just want to.
You know why? Because I was trying to get my point out, but you just go
Okay,
ahead and
so-
talk.
no,
You just
okay.
go ahead. No, I'm done now.
okay,
You just
okay.
go ahead and talk. You go ahead.
The reality is that in a crowd of 1 million people, not all people are going to be unified. During the Martin Luther King March, for instance, there were people in a group called SNCC who didn't feel that they should be marching at all. They should be getting violent. You're never going to have unity in terms of what people want to achieve, and you're always going to have dissension even in people who are opposed to one particular entity. That is, I'm really trying to get to a place where we can understand that people will do what they feel they need to do.
Okay.
Whatever is the outcome will be the outcome. But it isn't something to just say, and I would condemn my fellow man who would condemn those marching in support of Trump. In the same way that I have a problem, the people who have the alternate right, when they march, the KKK, they have a right to march, but I have a right to condemn their march because of what they stand for. So, it is what it is. That's all I can say. I don't think that people should get riled up. They've been marching from the beginning of time, and I'm glad that they're marching instead of rioting.
Well, you see what he did his first day in office.
What's that?
Trump executive order reverses foreign abortion policy.
Yeah, there you go. So.
And so women are not allowed to go out in the streets to fight for the rights of their own bodies.
Yeah.
You say the U.S. ain't giving no funding to people. He's a president who said that he is pro-life.
Yeah.
And so he would obviously have policies in place that are in step with his
and
beliefs.
And they have a right to march to oppose it. We'll be right back. We're going to do a couple more minutes with Candy. Our guest is going to be Sir Franklin Wilson.
Yeah.
There's a lot of titles. Sir Franklin Wilson will be on in a few
it?
minutes. Yeah, I won't win. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, from the DMZ. We're behind enemy lines, and we're here with Candy, and we're talking. Well, the subject was the march on the weekend. That's what you brought in today,
Right.
and so listen. What can you say? 2 weeks from now, a week from tomorrow, that'll be forgotten news. The march.
Right.
It'll be some other controversy.
Well, they had predicted or estimated like 2.9 million women, or not women, people were out on the march, like all throughout the U.S. and internationally.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's I've seen scenarios where, like, for instance, when Nelson Mandela. Remember when Nelson Mandela was imprisoned? You had huge marches. It took, how long was he in jail? 30 years?
27 years.
27 years. So I don't even think the marches did it. I think sanctions did it.
Yeah.
And some serious sanctions was what kind of brought that regime down. But people demonstrate, and they kind of want to people, I think, want to voice their views, and that's as simple as that. We have talk shows, we have blogs, I've gotten to the point now, to this is, I suppose, to Rogan's point about what's the outcome, is when you hear about what's happening on talk shows, when you hear about people having breakfasts and blogs and all these things, you go, well, what's the purpose, But it is what people want to express themselves. And I suppose it's better to express themselves either in the written word or the spoken word, rather than picking up arms and expressing themselves that way.
Yeah, well, and like I said before, people have a right to march if that's what they so choose to do, and people have a right to say, "What the hell are you marching for?" If that's what they want to do. That's all I have to say. And
I suppose the closure that would be is people have to say, "Well, figure it out for yourself," Because I would assume, and I'm probably not correctly assuming this, that most of the people who are in the march kind of know, at least feel. They may not know. They might feel they know they're marching for something. Usually it's dissatisfaction. Usually the number one motivator, I assume, of people marching is that they're dissatisfied with something.
Okay. I suppose if you're just there for venting purposes, then if that's what it is, that's what it is. I don't see the point.
There are people who actually will say, and you've heard this statement, what's the point of voting? There are people who make that statement. Yeah. The system's rigged, or they're all the same, or whatever the deal is. So it is what it is.
People say, what's the point of getting married? People question a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But equip yourself. Find out. Instead of closing your mind, be like, well, I think it's silly. And not even, thinking, well, let me see what it's about. Let me try to understand the other person. And if after finding out all the facts and reading up on it, and I still don't see the point, well then, okay, then you have a justified. Then you're justified, I think.
But how is it closing your mind when someone is protesting after the fact?
After what fact?
After the fact that Donald Trump has already been elected.
But you're.
Could it be-
we're
could it
going
be-
to
no,
keep
could
going
it-
back and round
okay,
and round in a
could it be
circle.
this
What is
then?
the outcome?
Okay.
That's what I keep coming back to. What is it?
Could it
Why
be-
wasn't why wasn't the march that happened with Reynard and those? Why didn't that happen a couple of years ago? I mean,
No,
we
but-
could
no,
talk about this
no,
all
but
the
let's
time.
deal with the one that happened in D.C. So suppose, for instance, that one of the issues was reproductive rights. I'm just throwing that out there. Well, those who would have been on that march, if they were supportive of Hillary Clinton, and let's just assume that all of them voted for her, but they lost. Then they would have assumed that if she had won, their reproductive
They would have
rights
been okay.
would have been okay. Now that Mr. Trump has won, they want
Now-
to show,
right.
look, we're going to be fighting for this. In the same way that the Tea Party said, look, Mr. Obama, you won the election, but we don't want this. We don't want that. Okay? Obamacare is a classic example. The Tea Party was hardcore marching, town hall meetings against Obamacare. It happened. Now, what has happened over a period of time, and it takes time, is that they won the election ultimately, and maybe that might be repealed.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a process. That's all I can say. It's a process. It isn't just
After
a flip.
winning the election. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they won Obama won the
I
election.
don't, did you think Trump was going to win?
Yes,
Okay. Obama won the
I
election.
said that from day one.
Okay.
Okay.
She did. Obama won the election. He said, we're going to have health care. He won the election. The people still protested Obamacare. So that's just the way it is. Because they felt if he hadn't won, we wouldn't have had to worry about this. But now that he's won, we're protesting that. It's what people do. So anyway, that's where we are, Candy. We'll talk, I guess, again on Monday.
But I will say though, they conducted a lot of smaller group after the march, about a couple of hours after to see what to do next, and things are happening, and they're getting ready for the midterms and
Right.
stuff, and
There
so
you go.
they're making sure that people, they keep
It's
the momentum.
It's advocacy.
You're right.
It's advocacy, so they'll keep it going. All right, and we'll see what comes out of it, and then we can go back in hindsight and say, "Oh, that's what it was for."
Right.
There you go.
But just don't come and tell
Or
me
if
it's
nothing
silly.
comes out of it.
That's
And
what you'll
then-
say. Well, if nothing
then
comes out of it, you know what?
then
If nothing comes out
then
of
I'll
it,
say-
no. You know what? You know what comes out of nothing? Nothing. You know what comes out of something? Maybe something. So we'll see what
We'll
happens.
see.
Okay. We'll talk
right,
to you about you later. Yeah,
Laters.
yeah.
Next
Yes,
week.
sir. Our guest in a couple of minutes, folks, is Mr. I got so many things going on in my head. Sir Franklin Wilson. We'll talk about a whole range of things in this year, 2017. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Rogan Smith. And our guest this afternoon, our very special guest, is Sir Frank Wilson. And he says to me, and I don't hold nothing back, Sir Frankie, he says to me, so what do we can talk about today? So there you go. That's the way the show goes. We just open up the mic and we have a conversation. You and I, in fact, if you recall, and this would have been, you see how it starts? You see how we already can get on the road? Okay. You and I, if you recall, it was about maybe 4 or 5 Christmases ago. And I would say that up until that time, we would have had let's just say, casual relationship. Right. Okay. And you and I were at a function, and we were sitting on a couch, and we initiated a conversation. And that conversation led to what I would say is a very strong and close friendship today. Wouldn't you agree?
I couldn't agree more.
So that's what happened. Yeah. See, that's what happens with conversation.
Yeah.
Maybe we were saying earlier, what's the point of talk?
Right.
But maybe that's what the point is.
Yeah.
Maybe relationships, and maybe things come out of relationships.
Yeah.
You never know.
Well, Ed, I tell you, what you say is true, but the fact of the matter is that these things don't just happen. They're grounded in some fundamentals. Mm-hmm. And in the case of us, I mean, we just finished Sunshine Insurance Race Weekend. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is, I go back to that. There's a part of that story that the public, I can't say enough. But the fact of the matter is, I told you that a part of the inspiration was that same Miss Universe thing that was held here.
Right.
And, that generated some, let's say, mixed reviews. There were some people in town who were saying, Bay means this and Bay means that, or whatever the comments was. And so. But my takeaway from it was that here's an event that was held, a world event, held at a world standard. And the fact of the matter is that doesn't happen in the Bahamas often.
Or at least people didn't believe it could happen.
Well, they didn't believe it. Whether people believe it or not, the fact that it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, in the Bahamas, it's not every week, every month, every 6 months that you have an event that is truly a global event,
Right.
produced at a global standard.
Right.
And in the case of, so that led to some conversations between us.
Right.
And what a lot of the public don't know is that today there would be no Marathon Bahamas if Ed, and through Ed, Atlantis hadn't stepped to the plate and became the platinum sponsor. Because it's interesting that even at that point, the Ministry of Tourism, their decision-making process, let's just leave it as that, wasn't fast enough to make anything happen of note in any time. I mean, if you were planning for the following year, maybe you stood a chance.
Yeah. It shows how the private sector wheels turn a lot
Yeah,
faster.
So that's what happened, right?
Yeah.
And so today, when we talk about few events happening in the Bahamas that are world events and take place at a world standard, at a global standard, I mentioned that part of a conversation between you and I because who knows where the hell that was going to lead when we had that conversation. Who knew then that a few years later, Delta Magazine is going to list Sunshine Insurance Race Weekend as what's happening in the world this month.
Yep.
What's happening in the world this month? It's that's how these things go.
We won that. I was placed on that board.
Right.
You remember I only went to about 3 meetings.
Yeah.
I only went to three meetings. But you remember what I said at all the meetings?
Yes. No, well, you see, Ed, the point is this: that so much of life generally begins with believing. I mean, Shawnee Mill had to believe she stood a chance, eh?
Yeah.
If she didn't believe she stood a chance, she wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
And then you really got to want it. You really got to want to do it. Yeah. Otherwise, she wouldn't have dived. Yeah. So these things happen, eh?
Yeah.
And the point you made was that, look, man, things like the Miss Universe event at the Miss Universe level don't just happen, eh? It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of planning, takes a lot of stuff.
There are people who do this.
There are people who do this.
Yeah.
And so we went out and got the people who did the Boston Marathon. Yeah. And
they transfer the knowledge.
They transfer the knowledge. So the fact of the matter is that what it did was, in a big way, it was insurance. See, I'm in the insurance business. In a big way, it was insurance. Well, it's an insurance. Because you see, what they did was, once we got them involved, we had the confidence that we weren't going to make a mistake that made you stupid. In fact, not long ago, talk about mistakes. It wasn't long ago that we celebrated the 30-some years of the fight drama in the Bahamas.
Right.
And what that led to is, as a result of that, I got some photographs and I'm now putting it in the lobby in our office. And it's amazing how a whole generation of people do not know that Muhammad Ali's last fight was in the Bahamas.
Right.
And I mentioned that because drama in the Bahamas.
You know about that, Rogan Smith?
Yeah, and because she saw the picture in the lobby, you see. So the point I'm making is that event was one of those events where we did not do it
the right way. Yeah.
And so because we did not do it the right way, what was really, that was one of those opportunities where I just say it was an opportunity loss. Right. So, a simple thing, Ed. I watched a video of this thing the other night. When the fight was about to start, we realized no one had brought a bell. Because could have a fight. There's no bell. So guess what we did?
Yeah.
A fella had a cowbell, so we got a little stick, and we hit the cowbell, and that was the bell.
Oddly enough, if you had known that ahead of time, you could have made that the Bahamian version of the bell in the first place, right?
You understand?
Yeah.
So,
But it actually harps on, and we're gonna skip through a couple of points. But the interesting thing about this transfers of expertise, right? We were in these meetings and we insisted that, listen, there are people who do this. Let's not invent the wheel,
Right.
because if you screw up,
Right.
you only screw up once.
Right.
You don't get a second chance globally, right?
Right.
But that we have this kind of aversion
Right.
to bringing expertise when it's needed.
Right.
But we should do that, and then we transfer the expertise.
Yeah.
So then we can do it ourselves. You're running this race now with Rogan and Pam and others.
Right.
100% Bahamian operated now.
Exactly. The principle, I tell you another story there, Ed, is interesting. Junior achievement. It was really the same point. Mm-hmm. In the case of junior achievement, it was the late Sir John Templeton who made essentially the point that you made about getting people who really know what they're doing. Because Sir John Templeton, the Chamber of Commerce had been trying for a number of years to get junior achievement started here, and for whatever reason it was struggling. And a group of businessmen, persons, had started the Young Presidents Organization here. And at one of the early meetings, Sir John Templeton was the speaker. And his basic point was, look, you folks who've done kind of okay, you owe it to your country to give back. And and one way to give back is to help prepare the next generation. And if you can help to do something like this, don't reinvent the wheel. There's an organization called Junior Achievement that has done this all over the world successfully. Let's try and bring that program in. Mm-hmm. And that was the genesis of how Junior Achievement started.
Well, where do you think this aversion comes from? We are here a little island, 300,000 people, 21/7. Mm-hmm. When superpowers, mm-hmm. In fact, I saw something on TV the other day. I forget the guy's name, an Asian gentleman. He's an American mm-hmm. who works with MIT. He's a professor somewhere. Mm-hmm. Says that something like 70% mm-hmm. of the science, technology, and engineering are people from outside the United States who have come into the United States and developed the companies like the Apples and all of these companies. Right. And so superpowers are willing to bring in this expertise to grow.
Yeah.
What is the basis of our aversion to that?
Well, Ed, let me put it this way. I don't think it's limited to just that narrow area. The fact of the matter is, as a country, this fundamental issue is what's our attitude towards non-nationals.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
is a matter that is not totally settled. I just happened to read in the paper today. Someone like Fred Smith, the QC, creates this controversy mm-hmm. because he lays out a theory mm-hmm. which. I think he himself acknowledged that he went too far.
Right.
Yeah. He went too far. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is that sometimes we're not sure. The country, we're not sure how we deal with that. But we're not alone. In America, the fact of the matter is, a lot of the last general election campaign in America was how do you deal with foreigners? That was a big part of the mm-hmm, debate, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so it's not easy.
How much of it though is just our insecurity because we feel we can't compete, and so we seek to keep those people out?
No, it's not that. It's let me being candid about it. It's this too. The fact of the matter is the world is not fair, and the world is not fair because they 10 times manipulate the rules to work to the disadvantage of small countries like the Bahamas. I give you an example.
Makes right.
Mike makes right. I give you an example, okay? The fact of the matter is, you try to open a bank account in the Bahamas. You go to open a bank account in the Bahamas. It takes you forever.
We've lamented this.
You go to Miami, you can open a bank account in minutes. What's something wrong with that? But the fact of the matter is, the only way that could be justified, it's America versus the Bahamas. So the fact of the matter is, to some extent, the concept of protecting what we have is relevant in the context of these fellas from the big powers have a lot of advantages built in already. So we have to do something because, take for example, for years and years, there are a lot of entrepreneurs in the Bahamas who bemoan the fact that a Bahamian goes to borrow money. Interest rates in the Bahamas tend to be higher than interest rates, and they have been now for a lengthy period of time, than interest rates in the United States. So whereas our prime rate has just gone down, but for a long time, you borrow money in the Bahamas, you were 2, 3, 4 points higher, or maybe more, than in the U.S. And there are a lot of business people here who bemoan that. But you see, and it tended to become a partisan political thing, but it wasn't that. The fact of the matter is, there have been times when interest rates in the United States, particularly like, for example, I go back to this because it was dramatic at that point. When Jimmy Carter was the president, interest rates in the United States was like in the very high teens, when interest rate in the Bahamas was half of that. So it doesn't automatically follow that these things always work to our disadvantage. But what is relevant is, for us, a lot of times, there's a sense that we have to protect what we have because a lot of times the world is not fair to us.
Do you think we got to take a break? I'm going to come back and put this question in your mind now. That given where we are and the fact that we are quote unquote disadvantaged, we're a small nation, that we have had over the history. So we take it out of the political realm. That we have had the right managers, because it seems to me that the issue of the Bahamas is how we manage our affairs. I want to talk to you about that when we get back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Sir Franklin Wilson. It sounds pretty good. And Rogan Smith is our co-host, and we're talking about a whole myriad of things. But before we left to go to the commercial break, you were talking about, how countries like ourselves often find ourselves on the disadvantaged end of the stick. Right. The question I want to ask, though, is if we're going to survive, what it really means then is we have to be ultra smart and ultra creative, ultra innovative. We have to be ahead of the game. Have we, but rather than pointing fingers at anyone, have we done that well? Have we really done the best we could do? If Franklin Wilson is in a company, and I know you run companies, when you find things aren't going a particular way in a particular direction, you've got to find a way to make it happen in another direction. Have we done that as a country?
And the answer to the question is, in some respects, yes, in some respects, no. This is a major challenge for us, Ed. And I tell you what the major challenge is. It's the very nature of our economy. What do I mean by that? Look, you go get a master's degree in whatever. You become a professor at the University of the Bahamas. You may not end up making as much money as that fellow who was the doorman at Atlantis. Now, I'm not insulting the doorman at Atlantis. All I'm saying is he did not require the same level of academic preparation to do that job.
Or investment.
Or
investment, yeah.
Okay? The fact of the matter is, we're in the housing business. And I see what some of the croupiers in the casino make. Well, the fact of the matter is, and that's a significant job and so on and so forth, but the fact of the matter is, it doesn't necessarily require the level of investment that what it takes to become a professor at the University of the Bahamas. But that you can make more money there. So the point I'm making is how money is made in the Bahamas is not irrelevant to this question of attitude towards creativity
And capacity.
and capacity. See, Ed, if you look at it, so many people in this country who are among our most creative people, they struggle to make a living. Struggle to make a living. You look, take artists, for example, okay? It's really like we still are first generation of artists who make a living as artists. We still are first generation. Herbert Bain, he came back, he was a very accomplished artist. But he couldn't make a living off that. So he went into human relations and other things, okay? What is interesting, mind you, there's some people who work the other way. Eddie Minnis went away and trained as an architect. Very distinguished architect, McGill University. Eddie decided to live his passion.
Right. And he did it well.
So what I'm saying to you is you could point in our society, this is an
It's a very
example.
interesting
where
point.
It works both ways.
Yeah, it's an interesting
Let me
point.
give you an example. One more example before you leave. Jackson Burnside,
Right.
okay, is rightly seen as a very iconic personality in our society.
Right.
Jackson had that rare circumstance where he had the architect and the art combination,
Right.
and ended up forming a relationship with Kersner that allowed him to do both. It allowed him to express both.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? And so in pretty much every profession
Yeah.
that you could think of, a lot depends on, can you form a relationship with a particular client, patient, whatever you call it,
Right.
that allows you to show all of your capacity.
But the point you make, which is very interesting, and we in our first couple of shows, we spoke with Elmo Garraway,
Right.
who's a teacher.
Yes.
And believe it or not, I say this very candidly, when we were looking for people who could speak to the issue, right? It was very difficult,
Right.
mainly because most are in the government system and the capacity, freedom of input, all that kind of stuff. But the point you bring up is this.
Right.
When you look at a place like Finland
Right.
and a place like South Korea,
Right.
the people who are teachers,
Right.
it is harder to get into the school of education
Right.
than it is to get into the school of medicine.
Okay.
So that the people who form
Right.
the capacity for a nation to progress,
Right.
ideas,
Right.
scope,
Right.
those are the ones that are being rewarded,
Yes.
and hence those nations are doing well.
Yes.
So if you don't focus on that, then you're going to lose a lot of capacity.
There's sound economic theory to support what you say. I remember when I studied economics years ago, one line I've always memorized because it stayed with me. Society pays the most for the things it values most. Society pays the most for the things it values most. And so the fact of the matter is, increasingly,
That's an indictment, though, in
but
this
but
environment.
that's the point I'm making.
Yeah.
See, what I'm saying to you is, there was a time in our country where the aspiration to teaching was very strong, very, very strong, and some of the brightest people I went to school with, Ellen Coakley, former Justice Claire Hepburn, all these were teachers.
But you see what happened with that
Well,
generation of teacher, right?
They left teaching. They left teaching to go into law or some other discipline because they found out, presumably, society valued law
More.
more and you stood a better chance of making more money as a lawyer.
And the irony is this, and I used to say this to Rogan a lot, like when you look at journalists.
Right,
The journalists
example.
in this country,
right,
by definition,
right,
if you're talking about by definition of journalism, not
Right.
someone who just read the news or anything,
right.
these are people who are inquisitive,
Yes,
innovative,
yes,
smart people.
yes,
So when they find themselves trapped
yes,
in something, and without sounding as if this is the only thing that matters, but trapped in a scenario where they can barely make ends meet.
That's right.
And they have the capacity
That's right.
to earn more.
That's right.
Well, then they go where they can earn more.
That's right. And they're interviewing people who they know
Yeah.
is they've invested more than. Let me tell you something. This is not a casual matter. And I tell you why it's not a casual matter. I am convinced that if you go back in Bahamian business history to, let us say, the 70s, by the 80s, let's say by 1980-ish or late 70s, okay? By this time now, you had the real first cadre of Bahamians being managers of this branch and manager of that branch and loan officers and so on and so forth, right? Now you're a loan officer, and John Roll comes into your bank to borrow.
Central Bank.
No, yeah, that's good point.
Just
good
go
point.
John Doe.
Yeah,
How about John Doe?
Doe?
Yeah,
John Doe, okay? Comes into your bank to borrow some money, and he brings a business plan. But John Doe, before you look at that plan, this was the fellow, he used to come last in your class. Used to beat him every test. Now he's sitting in the front of you with a plan, which on merit, you should say yes to. But this is a dumb fellow. And you in the bank making X $1,000, whatever X is. Mm-hmm. And if this plan works, this fellow can be making 10, 20 times X what you're making.
You ain't giving John that role?
Well,
you ain't giving John that loan?
I am
John
satisfied. I am satisfied that there were a lot of Bahamians in that position who struggled with dealing with that entirely professionally. It was the professional answer was yes, but man, I can't make this happen.
That's some scary stuff. That's scary.
But
that's scary.
I am convinced that retarded economic advancement for a number of Bahamians. In the, let's say...
You really think it's as simplistic as that?
But let me tell you something else. I go further, Ed. I go further. You're in the hotel business. Shortly after I came back from college, I became financial advisor to the Hotel Union. The Hotel at the time, there was a strong push for Bahamianization. Okay? Strong push for Bahamianization. So as a result of that, increasingly, the supervisors for the maids started more and more to become Bahamians. They weren't always Bahamians. There was a period of time for the first set of Bahamians who went in that door. They wanted to close the door after they got in. In other words, there was a certain cachet, a certain prestige. I am the only Bahamian supervisor.
Yeah.
I am the only Bahamian supervisor. So some of them started to want to close the door. And they started to grow within the union movement. Some of the leaders started hearing from some of the rank and file memberships, man, they prefer the foreign person to be the supervisor, particularly in that climate, because the foreign person was prepared to leave the door open a little wider. And that became relevant. The reason I remember it so well was because Sidney Poitier used to live here at the time. And Sidney Poitier, a small group of us, would every Sunday, he and Sir Lyndon Pinling were very, very close. And so on Sunday, if Pinling was in town, there was a small group of people who would always be up at Sidney's house. And there'd be conversation. I remember one thing Sidney Poitier said one time. Someone asked him, and his bottom line point was, when you walk through the door of opportunity, the one key responsibility you have is to leave the door open.
Wedge it open.
Your one responsibility is to leave it open.
Yeah.
But for a lot of Bahamians, that first wave of Bahamians who became whatever, Big Shot or whatever the case it was, for a lot of them, a part of being cachet.
It's a survivalist type thing that rather than me survive on merit and worry about that, I worry about who else might come move me.
That's
off the
my
tree.
not so much even move you.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, there was a certain something you got in your spirit
Yeah.
from the fact that you were the only one.
Right. Yeah.
So Franklin, I want you to just, we're going to switch gears a little bit and you put on your insurance hat. You know, NHI is coming whether we like it or not. A lot of people in the insurance industry don't like it. Are you concerned at all about the impact that's going to have on your business? And I'm talking about your Sunshine Insurance, you know, and moving forward.
Well, let me put it this way. See, the fact of the matter is, the answer to the question is no, I'm not concerned. Because at its root, what's good for the country is good for business. So the question is the principle of universal health coverage good for the country? Now, the interesting thing here is this. I have heard no one in the industry argue against the principle of universal health coverage.
We've had people on the show and they've said the same thing.
I've heard no one say against it.
And it's, I think, probably in the high 70s, if not 80s, of the general public wanting universal health care.
So it boils down to, okay.
Execution.
Okay. Now, what I find fascinating about this, what I find so incredible almost, before NHI, the debate on NHI, the debate was on VAT. And look at how the debate on VAT took place, where through dialogue and whatnot, the business community came around and says, this is it. And VAT, I saw my friend Vincent D'Aguilar making a comment.
Dionisio.
Yeah, this is me.
Yeah, you're in another generation.
Another generation. Yeah. Dionisio, if you're listening, you see your daddy's still in my mind. But Dionisio was making the point, paying tribute to how well VAT was implemented. Well, I don't quite understand why we could have been so successful with getting VAT implemented properly and struggle with this.
We can take a break. I got the little music in here. We can take a break. We'll come back and we'll answer that. Yeah. Ed Fields here along with Sir Franklin Wilson. We are here with Rogan Smith, and we're on the subject of national health insurance. And you brought up a very interesting parallel about how VAT worked. VAT was an unknown. I think there was a lot of people vested in it, a lot. The business sector, how this is going to work. Mind you, VAT, we were like the last people on the planet to do it. But the reality is this existed. So this, I think the big concern for business was the administrative ease. Rupert Roberts, who was one of the biggest opponents, he came out and said, administratively it's working, et cetera, et cetera. And so to your point that we were saying off the air about, you got to start something to see how it happens. There were some intangible issues where people are second guessing, but then there's some examples. And I know Frankie Wilson, the businessman. If I come to apply to you for a job as whatever, sweeper of the floor, and you get a reference and say, well, when Ed was down the road, he sweep the date in, not out. Okay? You'll say, well, Ed, I can't really, So the question, I think, is, are those people who are really pushing back, is there validity in the fact that, okay, we have a healthcare system that isn't working, it's tangibly not working? Is the concern that if it stays in the same bureaucratic fold, will we just be more of the same?
Let me say this to you. My overall point with the NHI thing is, look, I think we've agreed. We haven't heard anyone saying we're against universal health care. Okay? So we get into, have we got the right plan and the right details and so on and so forth? And I'm sure there's an opportunity. The fact that it's taking the stops and starts reflects the fact that even the people at the center of policy making think there's an opportunity to do something better. So that's why, we keep stopping and starting, I assume, right?
Right.
But you see, to me, I believe that the way medicine is done in the Bahamas today cannot continue. I tell you why. I had a dear friend who worked with us. No need to call his name. He had medical insurance. One Saturday he wasn't feeling good, so he went to the hospital. He put down his card. Every specialist in the country, in the hospital, had to look at him.
Because he has insurance.
He had insurance.
They can take advantage of that.
And you know something? When the insurance was gone, all the consultants
disappeared.
gone.
They didn't need to see him anymore.
They didn't need to see him no more.
Boy.
Is it a feeding frenzy? They know the pool is there.
Blood in the water.
I don't wish to cast aspersions on any medical professionals. Okay, law is the profession which tends to be criticized a lot as having rotten apples in the barrel. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, you look at what business, what shop you ever go in, put down a blank check and tell the shopkeeper,
Write an amount on it.
give you what he think you want. Who does that? But when you have that system, isn't that open for abuse? It's almost inviting abuse.
And this is the thing that Obamacare was trying to do. It is just way out of hand.
Let me give you
Way
an
out of
example.
hand.
But let me tell you how sad it is, right? How sad it is. I find a number of companies with which I'm involved are facing the problem of what's the point in putting people in insurance programs because they can't pay the deductible.
So you're just paying premiums.
I know a business where an employee was sick. The principal of the company says, "Let me go see the employee." She assumed the person was getting private care because they had insurance. Well, they were not getting private care because the person could not pay the deductible. So, I mean, what's the point?
Was the deductible extremely high, or they just didn't have
They
are
didn't-
not managing their money to be able to afford
Whatever
the
the
deductible?
deductible is,
Well, if you're in a private care scenario, you got to pay 20%,
you
right?
got to pay 20%.
So-
and you don't have it.
You
So
got-
my point to you is, if the bill is $10,000,
You gotta pay
don't have no
$2,000.
$2,000. So you ain't no point using that.
Yeah. It's what I say about good old hurricane coverage in some buildings. I can never claim on that. I can never have no hurricane that can cause me that kind of damage. That's another subject we'll bring you on for that.
Yeah.
But listen, let's skip just real quick. We got only a bit of time left.
Right.
You've got a convention down the road,
Right.
Yeah.
you are a supporter of the Progressive Liberal Party.
Right.
What is we're in an election year.
Right.
First of all, this a basic question here
Right.
now. Do you see a challenge to Mr. Christie's position, Mr.
Well,
Sears?
there is a position. There's a
There's
challenge.
but I'm saying
There's
do
a
you see it
challenge.
coming to
I don't
successful?
see him being successful.
Okay, all right.
I just think the fact of the matter is that the competitive advantage the PLP has at this stage in the election cycle is, in my humble opinion, there are many people in the public who see that today as a stable party. Forget other parts of it. It's stability. And anything that undermines that reduces the party's probability of winning. So I just think that there's a lot of delegates who will reason like that and not want to do anything that could weaken that perceived competitive advantage.
But let's just assume, things happen. Things happen in the United States. Things could happen that Mr. Christie would lose. I don't know if that points to instability in the PLP because they have not had a really contentious, drawn out thing like what you see in the opposition. They're basically going through the process.
If Perry
And I would assume
Christie-
that if
Perry Christie were to lose that election,
They wouldn't rally behind Mr. Sears?
Let me put it this way. It could, in my humble opinion,
Right.
it would take time for that to happen.
Okay.
It would take time. I'm not saying it can't happen,
Right.
but it would take time to happen.
Okay.
And given the time that's available,
Right.
I don't see that as happening. Let me give you an example. Neil Ellis is my foster son, as people here know. Neil Ellis is getting ready to preach.
You mean my man Neil?
Yes. He's preaching on Wednesday to the funeral service of Bishop Eddie Long in Atlanta. Okay. And he was telling me, for example, the church that Eddie Long pastors, they are giving through this issue as to how to deal with succession. And one bit of advice that Bishop Ellis has offered to leadership of that church, be slow and deliberate about how you deal with Eddie Long's successor. Because forget whatever people think about Eddie Long. The fact of the matter is the core of that church love him. And so the fact of the matter is for his successor to have a chance in hell of being effective, the people have to get Eddie Long out of their system. That don't happen overnight. That don't happen overnight.
What do you, having said all of that, and despite all of the things, you got the Baha-Mar, you've got, we all know, we read the papers, we know it. What do you see the PLP's chance of winning in the 2017 election? I know that's a hard question. You're not going to say, it's not going to happen and all that. But, in realistic terms.
To me, what I'm saying to you is, in my humble opinion, I believe the Progressive Liberal Party benefits from the fact that today there are a number of people who see that as the most stable option. I believe that whatever people think of Perry Christie, I believe in relationship to the people who will be the alternative prime ministers, I believe more people see him as having a competitive advantage over the options. Okay. I believe that.
Baha-Mar. Now, you and I have spoken about this a lot, and I stay a little bit away from the subject because I'm dealing in competitive terms here. I'm dealing with the impact on the country.
Yeah.
What is your view in terms of realistic? Obviously, the government was very, very aggressive in making sure that opened, prior to election. I don't think anyone can deny that. But forget about elections for now. Right. In a pure economic framework,
right.
What do you see pro, con? How does it?
In very plain language, Sakazis Moralian deserves tremendous debt of appreciation from the people of this country for having conceived Baha-Mar and getting it where he got it. Nothing can take away from that. He deserves our gratitude. However, what he did in taking that thing to Baha-Mar, to Delaware, was terrible, unwise. No progressive government could have supported that. And I've had this conversation with Denisio. And the fact of the matter is, in my humble opinion, Baha-Mar ran into problem because the directors of that company have yet to answer one basic question. If you are building a house, if you are building a house and you have a contractor, is it not reasonable for you to say to the contractor, what if you do not finish?
Performance bond?
Why didn't the directors of that company, brilliant as they are, not get a suitable performance bond? Why did they not get it?
The contractor was the problem.
Well,
I mean, if you're saying the contractor's problem, that's where you go to.
My point to you is, you have a performance bond. These are brilliant people. These are brilliant people. Why did they not get a performance bond? And so I have yet to hear a decent answer to that. And so to me, it appears to me that the directors of the company made a basic error. Now, I don't condemn them as bad business people, but the fact of the matter is, given where they were, where they were so desperate for that money.
Well, that's why.
Who read the fine print?
Well, but not only that. Let me ask you a question. Now, you've
read the
been
fine
in the
print?
financial world forever, right?
Yes.
You know, there's a term. It's called usury.
Yes.
Now, if you're the only person on the planet
Right.
who can give me money,
Right.
and you also happen to be the contractor,
Right.
because let's face it, it's one and the same, right?
Right.
And there is no one else.
Right.
I search. I've gone to Siberia.
Right.
I've gone to Argentina,
Right.
and the only place. And Frankie Wilson, I know you've been
Right.
plenty places looking
Right.
for financing.
Right.
If you're the only person on the planet, and you're also the contractor, and I say, well, I ain't giving you no performance bond.
Right.
Now, you want the money or not?
Well, that's my point. So what I'm saying to you is, if you make a business decision, see, my point to you is, so let's assume that's the decision the directors faced. Okay. So they made a business decision. Nothing wrong with that.
Then they have to live with it.
They have to live with it.
Yeah.
You
Because
see,
at the end
in
of the day, it's a
effect,
foreclosure.
What the directors of the company was asking the government of the Bahamas to do was totally undermine your legal system.
And sovereignty.
Let's forget. See, the directors are painting it as though it was a cavalier matter. Let's get over it. Let's take, for example, Ed Fields. Let's say this was the Royal Bank of Canada, and it was you. Royal Bank of Canada loaned you money, and you tried to pull that trick on the Royal Bank of
I got
Canada.
a company in the United States.
Yes.
And I say I'm going to foreclose, I'm going to claim bankruptcy.
Exactly. If you had done to the Royal Bank, forget the Chinese. You see, this thing about
I'd
the
never get a loan
anti-China.
again.
And the country, would Royal Bank ever lend more money in the Bahamas again?
Not if there's a loophole.
That's my point.
When you go to when you got to go, they tighten up every loophole where they
no,
can
but-
seize that asset.
Royal Bank of Canada, would they ever have extended another loan in the Bahamas again? So that's my point. So what has happened is the directors of the company go on this campaign to get Bahamian State the Chinese. Well, these are the people you love. These are the same directors who went to great lengths to convince the government of the Bahamas to change a policy which they say allow them to bring in 8,000 Chinese. They convinced the Bahamian people to accept 8,000 Chinese. But how come they were good then they were lending you the money? And now when they ask you to pay them back,
There's
they ain't just a problem. They ain't no good. They this, that, they that.
We got to go, right? So I can close with a joke.
Yeah.
And I hear this was my man, Manny Asadabe, who said this, but I don't know if
Yes.
it's true, right?
Yes.
Say when the fella got fired,
Right.
he went to the court,
Right.
and they said, Your Honor, they fired me because I was black.
Yeah.
And again, I say they attribute this to Manny, and it was true. So Manny say, well, what color were you when they hired you? Anyway, listen, we got to run. You like that one?
That's a very
You
good
could use that, okay? All right.
if you got 30 seconds, I'll give you one joke
Okay,
back.
let me hear that.
30 seconds
Okay,
quickly.
all right,
The story is 6 politicians riding through the farm in the country. And as they go through the farm in the country, they got into accidents. So 6 of them are lying on the ground. The farmer looks at it and says, the least he could do is bury them. So he buried them. When the police come, the police says, where are the politicians? He said, I buried them. He said, all? He said, yes. He says, were they all dead? He said, well, 2 said they were living, but you can't believe them.
All right, man, listen. So Franklin Wilson, all I can say is this: we have to have you back. We got lots more stuff to talk about. Please, we got to extend your invitation. That time, I'd like you to come back. That's all I can say. Thank you very much, Rogan. Thank you very much, Ken.